Have you ever wondered what it took for someone to join a cartel or a gang? From enduring brutal beatings and having firecrackers hurled at you, to bathing in bodily waste and even engaging in cannibalism. This reality is far more horrifying than you could ever imagine. So join us as we dive into 13 unbelievable initiation rituals. Number 13. Killing a prisoner or a guard. Aryan Brotherhood. The Aryan Brotherhood, aka the Brand or the AB, is the neo-Nazi prison gang and organized crime syndicate based in the US and has an estimated 15 to 20,000 members both inside and outside prisons. In the 1960s, the origin of this group could be traced back to when a group of white inmates joined forces to protect themselves from other prisoners. However, over time, the Aryan Brotherhood transformed into a formidable and dangerous criminal organization, spreading its influence across prisons throughout the United States. The Anti-Defamation League calls it the oldest and most notorious racist prison gang in the United States. However, according to the FBI, the Aryan Brotherhood makes up a low percentage of the entire US prison population, yet it's still responsible for a disproportionately large number of prison murders. The gang primarily engages in economic activities typical of organized crime entities, such as drug trafficking, extortion, inmate prostitution, and murder for hire. The structure of the Aryan Brotherhood's white-only membership varies from prison to prison, but it generally follows a hierarchical model. At the top, there's usually a 12-man council, overseen by a 3-man commission. To identify themselves, the Aryan Brotherhood employs various symbols, terms, and images, including shamrocks, swastikas, and others. The Aryan Brotherhood requires potential recruits to make their bones. This bloody rite of passage is pretty simple. It means taking out a rival gang member or corrections officer, thereby making them into bones. The AB's motto is blood in, blood out, and making your bones satisfies the first part of that. The second part comes when you leave the gang, which only comes through death. And as you might expect, the AB isn't the only crime syndicate that requires individuals to commit murder in order to gain membership. Number 12. Killing a rival gang member, the Latin Kings. The Latin Kings, also known as the Almighty Latin Kings, are one of the oldest gangs in America, tracing its roots back to Illinois, specifically Chicago, in the 1940s. This predominantly Latino organization remains an incredibly violent and active gang, with somewhere around 25,000 members nationwide, all draped in the gang's signature black and gold colors. Residing in Chicago's Humboldt Park neighborhood, initially it was serving as a social organization, offering a sense of community and belonging to Puerto Rican immigrants who faced discrimination and poverty in the US. However, as time passed, the gang transformed into a criminal enterprise, expanding its influence to over 30 states and numerous countries worldwide. Operating with a highly structured hierarchy, the gang engages in various illicit activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, and murder. Their actions have even involved collaborating with known terrorist groups, stealing military weapons, and engaging in cannibalism as a form of punishment for disobedient members. One of the Latin Kings' primary rivals is the Gangster Disciples, another formidable crew with a significant presence on the East Coast. As part of the initiation process for Latin King gangsters, they're required to seek out Gangster Disciple members by displaying Gangster Disciples' hand signals. Any response to these signals automatically marks the individual for a drive-by shooting, and the new Latin King recruit is expected to participate in this execution. Failure to complete this task, or missing the intended target, can result in brutal retaliation and sometimes even death at the hands of the gang. Number 11. Buck 50. The Bloods. The Bloods can be seen primarily as a street gang made up of African Americans, founded in LA, California. You can spot these members by their red clothing and specific gang symbols they use like hand signs. According to law enforcement, they estimate around 15,000 Blood members are across America. However, more realistic estimates suggest that the actual number falls between 20 to 25,000. The Bloods consist of various gangs, stretching across the East and West Coast. Each individual gang with its big group is called a set. The leaders of these sets work together to strengthen the overall organization. Originally, the Bloods were created to rival the influence of the Crips, another violent LA street gang. But over time, they grew in size and power, becoming one of the most feared and influential gangs in LA. They expanded their reach and influence to other states by dealing cocaine, which is their main source of income. Many young men are drawn to these gangs, seeking a sense of belonging and a quick way to make money. Now, gangs such as the Bloods, Crips, or Latin Kings have their own unique initiation rituals. However, the admission process for the Bloods stands out as particularly brutal. New recruits are required to perform this disturbing act known as the Buck 50. This would involve slashing a person's cheek with a box cutter, leaving them with a deep cut that requires 150 stitches. 1999, 6 members of the Bloods attacked a woman on a train, using razors to cut and stab her. Just 2 days later, another woman fell victim to a robbery where her face was also brutally slashed, requiring 150 stitches. 2008, a similar incident occurred, where 3 students from a school on Coney Island were arrested after cutting more than a dozen fellow students with a razor blade as part of that initiation ritual. Some students willingly participated, while others were forcibly held down and cut against their will. And it's not just about committing acts of violence against rivals or innocent individuals. Some gangs, as part of this initiation process, require their new members to inflict harm upon themselves. Number 10, 18th Second Beating, 18th Street Gang. The 18th Street Gang, also known as Barrio 18, is another criminal organization originating from LA, California, and now operates across borders. This gang has a presence in various parts of the US, Central America, Mexico, and other countries. Back in the 1960s, the gang was formed in the Pico Union neighborhood of LA. It started as a Hispanic street gang but quickly grew in size and influence. As time went on, the 18th Street became more organized and expanded its criminal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, and violent crimes like assault and murder. It would be the complex structure setting the 18th Street apart from its rivals, including a hierarchy of ranks and a strict code of conduct. Unlike traditional cartels, this gang doesn't have a single leader or godfather. Instead, veteranos oversee a chaotic network of cliques, enforcing strict rules that, if broken, can result in beatings or even executions. Considered to be one of the most violent gangs in the US, the 18th Street is notorious for breaking into homes and stealing cars, often leaving the owners dead on the streets. They strike at least once every day, sometimes in many locations at different times. Additionally, they have a long-standing rivalry with MS-13. Now, one striking aspect of the 18th Street is that it resembles a children's army. Recruiters actively target vulnerable middle school students who are struggling or seem to be on the fringes of gang life. They would paint this alluring picture, promising power, excitement, and action to entice these kids into joining their ranks. Now the big question is, how do recruits actually get in? Well, let me tell you, it ain't a walk in the park. Recruits have to endure this brutal 18-second beatdown. It might not seem like much, but one recruit surrounded by a gang of 10 to 12 older members with armed weapons like paddles, belts, and sticks could be a bad time. The beating is so intense that some of these people end up getting seriously hurt or even permanently disabled. It does make you wonder why on earth anyone willingly would put themselves through this torture. Well, it could be they're chasing some twisted kind of prestige that comes with being a member of this dreaded gang. But that allure never lasts long, and more often than not, it lands them right behind bars, or even in the morgue. Number 9. Getting jumped in, MS-13. The 1980s, Mata Salvatrucha, also known as MS-13, is a criminal gang starting up where? In LA, California. Originally, they were formed to protect Salvadoran immigrants from other gangs in the area. But as time went on, they had to turn into this typical criminal organization. The FBI would say there's around 10,000 members in the US and up to 40,000 in Guatemala and Honduras. Although they mainly engage in criminal activities like extortion, the gang's strength comes from their tight social bonds. Now, these bonds are formed and reinforced through acts of violence against their rivals or even their own members. The brutal criminal activities have contributed to making the Northern Triangle, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, the most violent region in the world that isn't at war. In October 2012, the U.S. Department of Treasury officially labeled MS-13 as a transnational criminal organization, making them the first street gang in the U.S. receiving such a designation. And let me tell you, that's not an empty title. These MS-13 members are involved in a whole range of criminal activities, from smuggling and trafficking weapons to assault, homicide, kidnapping, prostitution, robbery, and vandalism. They're also affiliated with the Mexican Mafia. And now, let's talk about how you get into this thing. These guys who want to join the group have to go through some seriously brutal initiations. One young recruit was jumped on by 5 of the strongest MS-13 gangsters, who beat the recruit unconscious. But that's just the light version. Females who aspire to join MS-13 have to endure an even more horrifying initiation. They're subjected to a twisted ritual called Exden, where several fully fledged MS-13 males force themselves on the female recruit. And if you thought that was it, well, think again. According to Inside Crime and the Center for Latin American and Latino Studies, gaining full entry into this gang requires the initiate to pass a final exam in El Salvador. And by final exam, we mean committing murder. Those who go through this final exam are seen as battle-hardened within the gang. Number 8. Bombarding Master Handan, the Taitung crime syndicates. In Taitung County, Taiwan, many syndicates have delved into activities such as money laundering and racketeering for a long time. These organizations follow the top-bottom structure with bosses and subordinates just like any other business. But here's where things get interesting. In the 1970s, these local gangs came up with a rather peculiar way to determine who would become the next mob boss. And what's their brilliant method, you ask? Well, they decide to throw firecrackers at the candidates. This unusual practice, known as bombarding Master Handan, actually originated from Taiwanese lantern festivals. During these festivals, people in Taitung County would throw firecrackers at a shirtless man representing Master Handan, the god of wealth. It was believed that bombarding him with these explosive devices would bring good fortune and prosperity. In the spirit of their culture, the gangs in Taitung adopted that ritual to choose their leader. The person who could go through the relentless barrage of firecrackers the longest was deemed worthy of leading the group. By 1984, the police decided to spoil that fun and ban the practice. However, the ritual eventually made a comeback and is still carried out to this day. Number 7. Lighting a crucifix. The Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan, or KKK, is a notorious white supremacist organization that has a dark and troubling history in the U.S. Now, this group carried out despicable acts of violence and racism, all in the name of purifying American society. Not only do they wear these white distinctive robes and hoods, but they're also classified as a terrorist group and strongly condemned by the government. Their targets are wide-ranging, including Africans, Asians, Latinos, Jews, homosexuals, atheists, and the list goes on. Back in 1865, the Triple K was established in Pulaski, Tennessee, shortly after the end of the American Civil War. Initially, it was formed as a social organization for Confederate veterans, but that quickly transformed into this white supremacist group, dedicating themselves to upholding racial segregation and white supremacy. Operating under their hierarchy with clear chains of command, the KKK has been responsible for numerous heinous crimes. One notable incident occurred back in 1851, when they bombed the home of an activist couple from the National Association of Advancement of Colored People on Christmas Eve, resulting in the tragic deaths of both individuals. Additionally, many other assassinations, bombings, and murders have been linked to this organization. The Triple K also has a set of complex rituals and codes that members must follow, including initiation rites and an oath. New members are required to light a crucifix, a sacrilegious act for sure. The supposedly Christian members of this clan justify that cross burning by describing it as lighting the religious symbol and not destroying it. The purpose? Intimidation. This disgusting act of symbolism was meant to threaten and terrorize innocent African Americans who lived near the burning grounds. Number 6. Getting jacked in. The Crips. Back in the 1960s in LA, California, where else, the Crips had come to life. Initially inspired by the Black Panthers, This gang started as a political group, but eventually would turn into this street gang. They were originally called Cribs, which would be a reference to the young age of its members, or play on the slang term crib meaning home. Today, the Crips have become one of the largest and most violent gangs in the US, with an estimated 30 to 35,000 members. These individuals have been involved in a wide range of crimes, including murder, robbery, and drug dealing. They're also known to have a long-standing and bitter rivalry with the Bloods. Operating on a hierarchical structure, the Crips gang is divided into smaller groups known as sets. The set is led by older gang members who have the power to dictate the gang's activities. To become a member of this gang, individuals are assigned different deadly duties, one of which is being jacked in. The street-savvy term refers to committing auto theft as ways to prove oneself. Essentially, a prospective member would steal a car, often at gunpoint, to demonstrate their earning ability and impress the higher-ups. If successful, they're welcomed as full-fledged gang members. January 2008, a 17-year-old named Charles Brown attempted to join the local Crips gang. He hopped into the backseat of a parked car in Camisha Lake, New York, where 3 passengers were already seated. Brown proceeded to point a gun at the driver, forcing him to surrender that vehicle. It was later discovered as an initiation attempt for the Crips gang in that area. Number 5. The umbrella question. Numbers. The Numbers Gang is a notorious criminal organization originating within the prisons of South Africa and has since expanded its influence to other regions of the country. Renowned for its ruthless and violent tactics, as well as its unwavering code of conduct, this gang would trace its roots back to the 1800s in KwaZulu-Natal, although it's believed to still operate within South African prisons today. The gang initially began as a way for prisoners to protect themselves from violence and abuse at the hands of other inmates. Over time, the gang evolved into a complex criminal organization involved in many illegal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, and murder. There are speculations saying the gang was established by this individual, who was deeply disturbed by the exploitation of black mine workers and felt compelled to take action. While its exact origins and timeline of its formation remain uncertain, the impact of their violent actions has left a lasting mark on both prisons and communities throughout South Africa. The Numbers Gang is divided into 3 distinct groups, known as 26s, 27s, and 28s. Each group is responsible for different aspects of the gang's operations. The 26s are known for their involvement in drug trafficking, extortion, and any other means of generating wealth for the members of the gang. The 27s are ex-slaves and are subjected to performing sexual activities by subjecting themselves to perform sexual acts on command. The 28s are the most violent and dangerous group, and they're responsible for enforcing the gang's rules and punishing members who violate them. They also fight for this gang and wage war against their rivals. This classification occurs at the initiation stage, where intending members are asked one question. The question is, what would they do if they were in the rain holding an umbrella while another gang member was out there without an umbrella? If their recruit says they would share their umbrella, they would be forced into slavery. If they say they would stand in the rain with the other member, they move on to the next stage, involving attacking a correctional officer and being totally silent, as the punishment of a vicious beating is meted out to them. Number 4. Bathing in feces and urine. The Hells Angels. The Hells Angels are a well-known name in the world of organized crime. They have a notorious reputation for engaging in racketeering, drug trafficking, and sometimes even murder. 1948, the Hells Angels were initially established in California, but it has since expanded its reach to become a global organization with chapters in numerous countries. Despite claiming to be a motorcycle club, they are widely recognized as a criminal enterprise. This has led them to being heavily frowned upon by law enforcement agencies and security forces in the US. One of the most recognizable aspects of the Angels here is their distinctive logo, which features a winged skull. Club members are proudly displaying this logo on their leather vests and jackets. Alongside that logo, the Hells Angels are known for their strict code of conduct, which emphasizes brotherhood, loyalty, and respect among their members. However, another strange thing they're known for in their initiation rite involves a ritual that implies a future involving some dirty work. During this rite, older gang members gather their bodily waste in a bucket and proceed to pour it over the recruit's head while they kneel. It's even speculated that the recruits may be tied up during this process, preventing them from shielding their eyes, mouth, and ears from this mess. What's more, the recruit is then expected to endure this state without cleaning up or changing their clothes until the initiation evening is over. It may sound unbelievable, but it's true. And what's even more surprising is that these Hell's Angels aren't the only ones on this list today whose new recruits are required to engage in some incredibly gruesome rituals. Number 3. Drinking animal or human blood. The Chinese Triad. The Chinese Triad, aka the Chinese Underground Society, is a criminal organization starting up in China, spreading to other parts of the world, like Hong Kong, Taiwan, and various other countries. The Triad has a long and complex history dating back to the 17th century. It began as this secret society with the goal of overthrowing China's Qing dynasty. But as time went on, it turned into this criminal organization, involving activities such as gambling, drug trafficking, and prostitution. You can see the cult working with this clear chain of command. It's divided into different sections, each with special numbers. The newbies, known as the Blue Lanterns, don't have a number yet. The regular members have a number 49 and are at the bottom of that structure. They're also called soldiers and are responsible for doing the dirty work within the organization. There are other roles as well, like a liaison officer, enforcer, administrator, ceremonies officer, deputy, and operations officer. And all of them are led by the big boss, the Dragon Head, also known as the Mountain Master. The Triad is also said to have origins in Chinese mythology, called the Union of Heaven, Earth, and Water. However, these members believe what brings them together is stronger than water, something more profound: blood. To become a member, this rite requires a sacrifice of an animal. Its blood is collected into a cup. Then a few drops of blood from other members are added, and finally, the recruit's own blood is included. The recruit is then given the mixture to drink. If they refuse, it will be killed on the spot. During the rite, they're expected to chant an oath that goes like this:
If a member of this society finds themselves in difficulty, all will rush to their aid. If I, as a future member of this association, break this oath, the swords will descend and kill me.
And now you might be thinking there's nothing worse than that. Hold on, because the next two on our list will blow your mind. Number 2. Eating a human heart. The Knights Templar. In 2010, a brutal Mexican drug cartel and street gang was formed, the Knights Templar. This group's notorious for its brutal tactics and involvement in drug trafficking, extortion, and kidnapping, amongst other criminal activities. The Knights Templar originated in the state of Michoacan in western Mexico and has been linked to numerous violent incidents in the region. Originally, the Knights Templar emerged as this splinter group of another Mexican drug cartel called La Familia Michoacana. At first, they presented themselves as this vigilante group fighting against other criminal organizations in the area. However, it soon became evident that the Knights Templar was in fact a criminal enterprise in itself. The leaders of this group, referring to themselves as knights, cleverly used religious imagery and language in their speeches to foster loyalty and devotion amongst their followers. In a rather ironic attempt to appear virtuous, they displayed 14 banners on various bridges when the former Pope Benedict XVI was scheduled to visit a Mexican city. These banners welcomed the Pope and declared that they would refrain from engaging in any violent activities. The gang operates based on a 22-page book called The Code of the Knights Templar of Michoacan, which outlines the rules and regulations that bind its members. They claim to help the poor, not kill for money, avoid drug use, combat materialism, and show respect toward women and children. However, despite those claims, the initiation rituals are anything but respectful towards human life, especially children. The cartel is widely known for its gruesome killing methods, including petting and even boiling body parts of their enemies alive. Not only that, one of their rituals involves new members eating the heart of a child procured through their own network of organ trafficking. It's a grisly act, performed to prove the new recruits' loyalty to the gang. And they're not the only cartel in Mexico involved in such vicious acts. Number 1. Cannibalism. The CJNG. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the CJNG, is that notorious organized crime syndicate based in Jalisco, Mexico. They are led by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, commonly known as El Mencho, considered to be one of the most wanted drug lords in the world. Now, this cartel gained a reputation for brutal and violent tactics, as well as their clever public relations campaigns. While the CJNG has diversified into various criminal activities, like extortion and human trafficking, the primary source of income remains to be drug trafficking, especially cocaine and methamphetamine. As of 2020, the Mexican government considers them to be the most dangerous criminal organization in the country, ranking second only to the Sinaloa in terms of drug cartel power. While they do hold significant control over criminal activities in Jalisco, they also dominate operations in neighboring states of Nayarit and Colima. The latter is particularly crucial for the cartel's cocaine shipments from South America and chemical precursors from Asia. Although the CJNG is renowned for its conflicts with rival groups like the Zetas and Templarios, tensions have recently escalated with their arch-rival, the Sinaloa cartel, in the states of Chiapas and Zacatecas. Now, this cartel is known to have engaged in cannibalism, often during the training of their new sicarios or cartel members. According to a news report, first, they teach them how to kill people. They would start by learning how to sever the extremities. Then these recruits are forced to eat their victim, starting with severed fingers. They're then given a choice of one of those pieces to eat in front of their boss. They have to do this without any emotion or vomiting, or you're severely beaten. If you don't feel like eating this human flesh, they're not going to let you leave, and you might become a meal for someone else. Like Vigil, the DEA's former head of international operations, said the cannibalism is drilled into recruits to turn them into emotionless killing machines. Those who survive the grotesque initiation ritual are indoctrinated into this cartel after a graduation party that includes drugs and a lot of women, but they're never the same again. If you want to see how really twisted the CJNG is, check out our video on why you should never mess with El Mencho, the CJNG's ruthless leader.